When she turned her head away from my kiss, it felt like the air had been punched out of me. No argument, no hesitation, just a simple, deliberate turn of her face. Her voice came after a pause, calm but distant, like she was reading a script she'd already practiced. Our marriage is no longer intimate, Daniel. I can't pretend anymore. The words hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I just stood there in our dimly lit kitchen, hands still trembling from the attempt to reach her. The morning light was filtering through the blinds, cutting across her face in sharp lines, half in shadow, half in gold. She looked beautiful, even as she broke me. For a moment, I didn't say anything. My throat was too dry, my mind spinning between denial and disbelief. No longer intimate. I repeated, trying to process it. What does that even mean, Anna? You're my wife. She sighed, running her fingers through her hair in that way she always did when she wanted to avoid eye contact. It means I feel disconnected, Daniel. It's not about you, it's about us. I just don't feel it anymore. Her tone was almost apologetic, but it didn't soften the blow. I wanted to ask when she'd stopped feeling it, when the quiet smiles and soft touches had turned into polite distance. But deep down, I already knew. It hadn't been sudden. It had been slow, like watching paint crack and peel, knowing you can't stop it. That night, I lay awake while she slept beside me. Or pretended to. Her breathing was too controlled, too steady. I stared at the ceiling, counting each inhale like it might reveal the truth she wasn't saying out loud. I thought about the dinners where she'd kept checking her phone, the nights she stayed late at work, the perfume I didn't recognize lingering on her clothes when she came home. Still, I told myself I was imagining it. Because love does that, it makes you blind on purpose. The next morning, she acted normal. She made coffee, scrolled through her phone, asked me if I'd picked up the dry cleaning. Like nothing had happened. I watched her, searching for the woman I married, the one who used to steal my toast and kiss my neck just because she could. But she was gone, replaced by someone who looked the same but felt like a stranger. Over the next few weeks, the distance between us grew like a wall neither of us wanted to admit existed. She stopped saying goodnight. I stopped trying to hold her. We became polite roommates who shared silence instead of laughter. Every touch felt awkward, forced, like touching glass. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late. She said she was meeting a friend from work for dinner, a woman named Claire. I didn't question it. Or maybe I didn't want to. But when midnight came and she still wasn't home, something inside me snapped. I called her. No answer. I texted. Nothing. So I got in the car. The restaurant she mentioned was only 20 minutes away. Her car wasn't in the parking lot. My hands tightened around the steering wheel, and that awful, gut-deep instinct started whispering what I didn't want to hear. I checked the nearby bars, then the cafe across the street. Still nothing. I was about to turn back when I saw her car parked halfway down a side street, near a hotel. At first, I laughed. It sounded ridiculous. Anna. At a hotel. She must have met her friend there for drinks, I told myself. Maybe it was closer to Claire's place. But when I saw the room light flick on behind the second-floor window, and her silhouette move inside, I stopped breathing. Another figure joined her, tall, broad. They stood close. Too close. Then the curtain fell shut. My chest felt like it was caving in. I sat there in the car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. I wanted to burst into that room. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I just sat there, listening to the ticking of the car's clock and the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. When she finally came home, it was nearly 2 a.m. Her hair was slightly undone, her lipstick faded. She smiled faintly when she saw me on the couch. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said. "How was Claire?" She blinked, caught off guard for a split second before recovering. "Good. She's going through a rough time." I nodded slowly. "You should have stayed longer. Maybe spent the night." She froze. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," I said, forcing a smile. "Just saying." But she knew. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of guilt, the sudden defensiveness. She walked past me without another word, straight into the shower. The next morning, I left early. I couldn't stand to look at her. I drove aimlessly for hours, ended up at the old cabin my dad left me up north. I hadn't been there in years. It smelled of pine and dust and memories. I stayed the weekend, just thinking. That's where I made my decision. When I came home Sunday night, Anna was sitting at the table, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up. "You didn't tell me you were going away." "I didn't think you'd care," I said. She finally looked at me then. For a moment, something flickered across her face, maybe fear, maybe regret. "Don't be like that, Daniel." "I'm not," I said softly. "I'm just done trying to fix something you already buried." Her expression shifted, panic creeping into her voice. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I know," I said. "About the hotel. About him." Silence. "Then, you followed me." "I had to," I said, holding her gaze. "You stopped being honest months ago." Tears welled up in her eyes. "It was a mistake. I was confused, I shook my head. "No. You were clear. You said our marriage wasn't intimate anymore. You just forgot to mention you found intimacy somewhere else." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands, whispering apologies that didn't sound like they belonged to her. I didn't shout. I didn't even cry. I just stood there, watching the woman I once loved fall apart, realizing that something inside me had already let go. 2 days later, I moved out. She begged me to stay, promised to change, said she'd do anything to make it right. But the thing about trust, it doesn't return once it's broken. You can patch it, pretend it's new, but it'll always leak somewhere. A month later, she called. She wanted to meet, to talk, to start over. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I saw her, she looked different, lost, maybe even sincere. "I made the worst mistake of my life," she said. "Can we try again?" I looked at her for a long moment. Then I smiled, not out of spite, but clarity. "You're right," I said. "You did make a mistake. But so did I. I kept loving someone who already stopped." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You said our marriage wasn't intimate," I whispered. "You were right. It isn't anymore." And then I walked away. That was the moment she finally changed her mind, when I was no longer there to love her back.